He's talking about treasure chests? Geez, regular Pats really jumped the shark. Listen to me, you little snot. I don't jump the shark, I kill the shark in the sunken ship. I've been meaning to do this video for at least a year, maybe even longer, so if you do think I'm stale, I've been stale for a long time now, and you've been here anyway, eating the stale content, look at you. Yum yum yum, worst quotes bracket, ooh, delicious Dream Drop world ranking. So, we're doing treasure chests today, and you can take it or leave it. You should take it though, because it's the holiday season, which is definitively and exclusively about gifts. And what's a treasure chest if not a gift? That's how all presents came before they figured out how to make wrapping paper. And the classic bad present wasn't always socks and underwear, oftentimes you'd open your Christmas chest and say, great, more f***ing gummy blocks. Now, this might be a bit crunchy granola of me, but the true treasure isn't what's inside a treasure chest, it's the joy of finding it at all. I'm all about the journey, not so much the destination, although if I'm comparing two roughly similar journeys, then sure, I'll prioritize whatever had the more valuable destination. Today, we're going to take a look at every world in the Kingdom Hearts series, for the most part, and pick out what I think is the best treasure chest in each one. It's like we're taking a big holiday road trip. I don't know, I'm trying to make this one Christmas themed. In markedly untrue regular Pat fashion, I'll spare you the big speech up top about what makes a chest good. I think we'll be able to intuit it if we just stick together. We'll figure it out as we go.
Same old stuff. Hunting legendary treasure.
Starting off in Sora's Dive to the Heart, we've got this chest on the Triple Princess platform, which is simultaneously both the best and worst chest in Sora's Dream, as it's the only chest. It doesn't actually have anything in it, which perhaps muddies expectations for what treasure chests are going to be all about. You know in Days how Axel says to Roxas that chests tend to have stuff in them? Well, sometimes they don't, you charming little murderous scamp. All this chest does is spawn a crate when you open it, but that's not really a treasure. That's like when your Aunt Tina donates a goat to a village in your name and that's your Christmas gift. That's not a gift, that's Aunt Tina making herself feel good and getting you involved for some reason. I don't want my name attached to this whole thing, what if the goat bites someone? Then I become infamous in the village, now I'm the guy who sends bitey goats. That's what this dream chest is like, it's exactly like this goat scenario. Moving on to Destiny Islands, we once again only have one option here, but it's miles ahead of our last chest. The only chest on the island is also missable, and it's this protect chain tucked away in the cove wall, only accessible on the second day. This is Kingdom Hearts 1 saying, yeah that's right, I'm Kingdom Hearts 1 motherfucker, you gotta work for this shit. Not only do you really have to take in the sights to even notice this little indentation in the wall, but you need to look around for a solution to help you reach it, which comes in the form of this crate. And unless you're playing on Final Mix Beginner, this is also your first ever accessory. Is protection important? You bet it is. Now, Traverse Town is where things really open up, especially considering we have more than one choice. I do like this one on the accessory shop roof in the first district. It requires a bit more platforming, which is my drug of choice. Also in the first district is the chest that only opens when you blizzard all the candles. I always love getting to use magic to interact with the environment, and this is one of the earliest examples of that. It's also extremely satisfying to encounter a chest early on in the game while you're unable to open it, only to come back later with the tools you need to show it who's guard armor, aka the boss. With all that in mind, those are just honorable mentions. My pick for Traverse Town is actually the chest containing the first 3 puppies, though it's probably one of the later Dalmatian chests you'll open. In the Mystical House, you've got this lone rock sitting off to the side, and there's no way to reach it in the early game. Not by swimming, not by jumping, not by high jumping. I remember as a kid, I even came back once I got Mermaid Kick, hoping I could somehow propel Sora onto the rock by doing that. But no, you have to make the long swim of shame back to the room's entrance. It's not until you're done with your very last Disney World in Neverland that you can come back here with Glide and get this one. Really solid bookending considering you can access this area on your first trip to town and now you're back before your departure to what you think is the final world. Plus, puppies. Always more exciting than a gummy or some bling that you're not gonna wear. Wonderland is potentially the most intricately designed world in the game and even the entire series, so it's got a lot of out-of-the-box chests, even though much of the world takes place very much in the box. A contender here is definitely the chest that gives you Lady Luck, but it feels a bit cheaty considering you have to do a White Trinity, which in turn spawns the chest. So instead I'm going to pick this Dark Matter chest in the Tea Party Garden, which requires a lot of work to get. You have to go to a flipped version of the Bazaar Room, assault this teddy bear, then go back to the regular Bazaar Room, toss the bear into the air like you've got early access to Pooh's swing, and that makes a clock extend out of the wall. Then you push the clock out of the way for a secret entrance to the Tea Party Garden balcony. Holy shit, KH1, you should be in charge of like banks and museums and shit. Doing one thing is already extremely taxing. 2 or even 3 things? Fine, keep your treasures. Despite only being composed of 3 rooms, I think there's actually a conversation to be had with Olympus Coliseum, even though all but one of these chests are found in one room, the Coliseum gates. Once again, it's tempting to pick the chest in the lobby that contains Olympia. It's sitting there for basically the whole game and only opens after beating the first 3 cups. So it's more about working toward that goal than any sort of puzzle or maneuvering, which is still rewarding in its own right. But my pick for Olympus combines that feeling with a bit of problem solving. There's actually 2 chests you can get in the Coliseum gates for putting out all the torches. If you attempt it with Blizzard, nothing happens, and the flavor text suggests that you'll need to have a more powerful spell. So coming back and extinguishing all of them with Blizzara nets you a Holy Gummy, but you can do it again with Blizzaga and get a Shiva Belt, which is, in my opinion, the more exciting reward, so that's my pick here. Also, common misconception, the Holy Gummy is not missable. You can get both chests if you only put out the torches one time with Blizzaga. I was wrong about this in a 2019 video, and it still haunts me. Deep Jungle is a massive world, and there are still 30-year-olds crying on the internet about how they got lost in it when they were 8. Truly quite the legacy. Despite this world's scope, I think the conversation here is actually limited to the first room you have control of Sora in, which is the treehouse. All 3 chests here are actually solid. The Mega Potion on the netting is pretty tucked away and well hidden. There's a chest on the very top of the treehouse roof, which can be difficult to reach, especially if you're not platform friendly. Unfortunately, your reward is a fucking protect chain, so not really worth all the effort. We got the same thing in the tutorial world, and that took a fraction of the time. The good news is that you can use this positioning to your advantage and help you get to the best chest in the world, which is obviously the one hanging in the boat. If I were a game designer, and you should all count your blessings, I'm not, the one thing I'd be sure of is that I'm putting a treasure chest in that suspended boat. Famously, at least in circles of nerds like me and you, this chest can be reached by swinging your keyblade after jumping off the roof to get more horizontal distance, instead of waiting until post-Neverland to glide over to it. Plus, the chest contains a mithril, which, while a bummer for a perpetually lost 8-year-old, is a useful and fairly rare synth material, which are only used by very serious grown-ups. It's probably no surprise that the pick for Agrabah comes from the Cave of Wonders, whose whole brand is like mysterious contraptions and secret passages. And you know, given that you don't see that much of the cave in the movie, I think KH1 did a good job fleshing the environment out. Better than its younger brother did, that's for sure. Admittedly, there wasn't a choice here that immediately jumped to mind like the other ones so far, but I landed on one of the 2 chests in the hidden room. You have to come back here with high jump to get onto the elevated ledge in the silent chamber. Although the game wants you to wait until getting Yellow Trinity so you can push a block from the area above, providing a platform that you absolutely do not need if you have high jump. You also have to light a statue to open up the secret wall, and while the Abu and statue lighting gimmick is never required in this world, I always thought it was a fun little touch. There's 2 chests revealed by doing this, one with some puppies and one with a Haste 2 gummy. Now, I know I said puppies are more exciting, but not if they're up against the prospect of going fast. Sure, it's a gummy, but it's a gummy that helps you spend less time doing gummy stuff, so I think it's a win-win. I've long been a Monstro appreciator and defender, but I can't say these whale innards have the most interesting or memorable chests. It doesn't help that the chambers are all vaguely similar looking and don't have very distinct names. There's some interesting stuff in the chambers, but you can get it all on the first trip through even without high jump. The only thing you actually need to come back for is the White Trinity. So I suppose I'll focus on my favorite room in the world, the Mouth, and go with the Water Gleam chest. It's one of several that can't be accessed until you unlock high jump, which is itself in a chest, and I never quite understood that. But more importantly, Water Gleam is the Dumbo summon gem, and the only summon gem to just be sitting in a chest. Given that your other summons are part of mandatory story events, besides the Bambi gem and Nature Spark, which you still get by proceeding through 100 Acre Wood normally, Dumbo is probably the most missable summon. And I'll be damned if I'm not going to skip the block puzzle in Hollow Bastion using my flying elephant, so this alone is reason enough to make this the pick for Monstro. Atlantica has the problem of, well, it has several problems, but its items are most often hidden in clams. Now, I'm no clamologist, but there are a few scientists in my Patreon community, and they were able to confirm that clams are not treasure chests. There are some normal Atlantican treasure chests, like in the sunken ship, and they're pretty decently hidden, but I'm actually going with this big-ass chest outside Ariel's grotto. Maybe it's a cheat since it's a vastly different model than all the other chests, but I don't know, this isn't not a treasure chest, and it's certainly not a clam. I didn't even have to ask anyone about that. You can't open it upon initial interaction, rather you have to wait until about midway through the world when you can dislodge it from below using the secret passage from the sunken ship area. And on top of it all, it has the rare orichalcum material, also known as orichalcum when you're an illiterate baby who doesn't know any better yet. And it unlocks a shortcut. Call me a PETA member outside SeaWorld because I'm putting this fucking dolphin out of business. For Halloween Town, my mind did first jump to Oogie's Manor, which I think is just undeniably one of the coolest areas in any Kingdom Hearts game, but I don't actually think any of its chests are particularly noteworthy. The manor has an odd quirk of having one or two chests suspended in floating cages, but if you're doing the worlds in order, Oogie's Manor is flattened by the time you'd have Glide, and thus the ability to reach those chests. There's this group of chests in the cemetery, which is itself one of the more obscure rooms in the game, but again, the chests themselves aren't really standing out on their own merit. So I think the pick here is actually in Guillotine Square, which houses a few chests that I probably only found with the help of a guide. One of them is only reachable by high jumping on this ledge near the jack-o'-lanterns, but there's an additional two in a building across from it only accessible by gliding. We'll go with the chest containing puppies 70, 71, and 72, as I wouldn't be surprised if these were the last ones people found on their first playthrough. Our options are admittedly a bit limited in Neverland. In fact, there's only 11 options. One of those is from the White Trinity, and 4 are locked behind the Yellow Trinity in the Hold. That side room in the Hold is definitely one of the best pockets of treasure in the game, between 2 rare synth materials, a puppy's chest, and an arrow upgrade, but none of the actual chests are placed super cleverly. And since Hercules' Cup unlocks after Neverland, it's not like this Yellow Trinity is sitting there and taunting you for the entire game, so there's not much pomp and circumstance here. Instead, I think the quintessential Neverland chest is the one in the crow's nest on the deck of the Jolly Roger. It's only natural that the pick here is one of the few treasures that actually requires flying, and it's once again in a place that screams put a treasure chest here, and it rewards your natural curiosity of exploring the pirate ship. Ah, Hollow Bastion, once again the secret centerpiece of an arbitrary video topic. I love this place so dearly. What a treasure trove of, well, treasures. I know at this point the fact that you can freeze the bubbles in Hollow Bastion is like the KH1 version of Super Mario Bros. 2 is actually Doki Doki Panic, but the fact is still fun, isn't it? So naturally the pick here is gonna involve that. I've probably highlighted this treasure in like 3 other much older videos, but it's the dark matter in the waterway. This is just so obscure and out of the way, I can't not love it. Is it a good thing if a treasure is like close to unfindable? I mean, probably not, but nothing brought me more joy than finding new stuff in my favorite game nearly 2 decades after I had first played it. This was one of the last stones I had unturned, and I know in an early playthrough of the 1.5 remix, I synthesized an extra dark matter because I straight up didn't know this one existed, and that is true pain. An honorable mention here goes to this chest near the emblem door in the entrance hall. You have to grab onto this handhold to get up onto the pillar, and then jump over to the opposite one. This entire world is out of its mind. Don't worry, I didn't forget 100 Acre Wood, though we don't have a ton to pick from here. The only actual treasure chests are in the bouncing spot, in arguably the best area in the entire wood. There's the dark matter in the tree, but I frankly find that one a bit annoying to reach, and it's not exactly hidden anyway. So that really just leaves the green chest with the AP up in the Tigger's giant pot stump. There is nothing forcing you to enter the pot remnants, but you're probably gonna, because you like to have a good time, why wouldn't you? The up line of items is the closest thing Kingdom Hearts has to performance-enhancing drugs, so it makes ample sense that Tigger set up shop on top of some. And our last stop in KH1 is End of the World, which is a pretty linear, straight shot from start to finish. Not that this is a bad thing, but it doesn't give us much in the way of creative chest placement. The most interesting room layout-wise is the giant crevasse, which has its share of chests scattered around, but none of them really stand out above the rest. Maybe it's kind of a sleepy pick, but I'm going with the Megalixir right before the ending gauntlet, because it's the final chest in the final rest. It feels like the game is giving you a free present before heading into the last stretch, and it's objectively the best healing item in the game to boot. So before we move on, I actually want to address something I've heard for years about KH1. There are 3 types of what we'll call common chest designs in the game: red, green, and blue. There's some other weirdo ones like the pink evidence boxes in Wonderland or the big-ass Atlantica chest, but by and large we have 3 types. Basic red, the more square-shaped green ones, and the blue ones with the keyholes. The blue ones are weird because there's sort of an implication that only a Keyblade can unlock them. The first one you can possibly ever see is in the green room, where Yuffie explains that the Keyblade can unlock all sorts of locks. Of course, it's not like avoiding this missable Yuffie dialogue means that you're locked out of blue chests for the rest of the game. Well, I actually forgot that Leon tells you about them too, and you can't progress without talking to him. So I never really understood the point of it. It's not like Traverse Town was littered with locked blue chests and only now do you have the ability to go open them. It's literally just this one chest that won't open on your first visit to the room until talking to Yuffie or Leon or leaving. Part of me wonders if this was something that got dummied out, because otherwise it seems kind of pointless. I guess this whole scenario might exist just to illustrate that the Keyblade in fact works as a key, but I don't know, something about it seems off. Anyway, that's not even the main thing I'm getting at here. There's always been conversation, at least if you've read about Kingdom Hearts on the internet for decades like I have, about if the color of a treasure chest has anything to do with what's in it. Popular consensus is no, it doesn't, but I just refuse to accept that as an answer. So I tracked down every treasure chest and noted their contents and the color of each of them and put them in a spreadsheet, because of course I did, who the fuck do you think I am? And according to my really cool calculations, there are 162 red chests in the game, which is by far the most common color. Then it's blue with 40 and green with 31, which I always thought all three were roughly equal for some reason, but clearly not. Now, is it true? Is there no rhyme or reason to the contents of a chest based on its color? Well, yeah, kinda. Looking at the list, it's not like there are any super noticeable patterns here. Keychains appear in all three colors of chests, as do puppies, gummies, stat boosters, accessories, HP and MP items, and synth materials. Green chests are the only color to never contain a Donald or Goofy weapon or key item, and red chests are the only color to contain torn pages or stuff like the arrow upgrade and high jump, but I don't really think any of that is on purpose. Now, despite the item spread seeming pretty arbitrary across the three colors, it does seem like blue chests generally tend to have higher quality items inside. It's not that the red and green ones won't have good stuff, but the blue ones almost never miss. The lowest quality item in a blue chest is probably one mithril shard, but everything else ranges from high-level synth materials like dark matter and orichalcum, rare or powerful gummies, puppies, and items like megalixirs or cottages. You're never going to find a measly potion or even high or mega potion in a blue chest. And a weird quirk about green chests, while there's not too many of them, they overwhelmingly appear in safe areas, aka places where you can't enter combat. I really thought I was onto something here, but I ran into exceptions like green chests in Oogie's Manor or the Captain's Cabin. Then you've got 8 of them that appear in the final dimension, but technically you're not fighting Heartless in the same area where you find the chests. So of the 31 green chests, 23 appear in rooms where you can never initiate combat, with an additional 4 appearing in places that can be safe either before or after certain story events, namely the Treasure Room, Ursula's Lair, and the Clock Tower. That's 27 out of 31, which seems intentional, but it really could just be a big coincidence. Was this interesting, like at all? I mean, I found it kind of interesting, and I did the work of finding this stuff, so I had to talk about it at least a lot. Let's see, how do we put this off for even longer? Oh, of course, Chain of Memories. Sure, the rooms in Com are all semi-randomized and there's not really any static treasure chest locations, but we can still make this work. At the risk of losing the small fraction of people I've managed to retain for this long, we won't go world by world here, but I'll still pick one best chest in Chain of Memories. Chests can only show up by using 4 different kinds of map cards, but the best chests tend to be in Rooms of Reward. Thus, I think the best Chain of Memories chest is the one holding the Roxas card in Twilight Town's Room of Rewards. All of these later game enemy cards have limited utility, but Roxas doubles your damage output for 20 attack cards. It costs 99 card points to equip, but beyond that, there's literally no downside to putting it in your deck and using it at the start of any fight.
We're just going to take your treasure.
Alright, I've delayed the inevitable long enough. Unless maybe I can run an ad here? We'll see. I knew when I decided on this project that while I would be excited to talk about KH1 treasure chests, I'd also have to talk about KH2s. And this is not just me being the regular pastiche of myself. Like, I know some people think I'm just the 1/2 guy, but really, KH2 is not the game for this exercise. And yet, persist we must, because I can't just talk about the games that do this well, I've gotta do all of them for some reason. This is my self-inflicted curse. Well hey, to start off, Twilight Town's best chest isn't too bad. Without any doubt in my mind, the best chest is the one in Sunset Terrace that you need to use the tram to reach. Unlike the T-Town tram, KH2 is going to lose a lot of steam after this as far as chest placement goes. Of course, I could go on a bitter diatribe about how this game tore out any sense of exploration and frankly environmental whimsy root and stem, but I've been doing that for like 5 years now. I'm becoming the old man yells at Cloud meme, and by this point you can literally play this game on the Cloud. You can fight Cloud on the Cloud, and I'm yelling at all of that. I don't even know if I've made that joke already. That's how cranky I am about this chess business. Editing Pat here, noting that yes, I did make an old man yells at Cloud joke and the Dream Drop World ranking. Different context, but yeah, I need to be put to bed. Now, mind you, that specific Sunset Terrace chest is only in the simulated Twilight Town, so for Sora's, I'm gonna go with this one on this blue roof in Tram Common. If you're collecting these pre-unlocking movement abilities, you have to jump across this little gap, and that is nearly as thrilling as it gets. We keep a bit of momentum as we head into Radiant Garden, which has a monstrous 46 chests to collect, a number that's pumped way up by the Cavern of Remembrance. Like when I picked my favorite room in each world, it was always fairly obvious I'd be looking here for our chest pick. To steal a line from Novayon in our April 1st collab from nearly 4 years ago, it's called the Cavern of Remembrance because this is where the devs remembered how to do interesting world design. There's a couple of pretty good chests in the cavern, and not even just by KH2 standards. I think I'll go with this Manifest Illusion in the engine chamber. Not only do you need to pass 3 drive form skill checks to even get to this room, you've got to make it through some of the game's toughest grunt heartless, some ouchy steam blasts, and do a couple of glides to reach this one, and it's fairly tucked away. Of course, if we weren't counting Final Mix stuff for some reason, I'd go with the Ukulele Charm chest in Ansem's lab. It's a Beeg chest, so you get the little animation, and I like Stitch. This is what we had in 2006. And oh boy does that vibe continue in a major way, because the Land of Dragons marks the beginning of what I'm gonna call the hard part of the video. Nobody ever installed an interesting secret labyrinth in the Chinese mountainside in a re-release of this game. What you see very plainly sitting in front of you is what you easily and mindlessly get. Chests scattered around with finesse akin to that of a kindergartner who's broken a yellow-green crayon into thirds, 2 pieces in both hands and the remaining third deeply inserted into a nostril. And it's not even Crayola, it's rose art. What I never got with this game, and to a lesser extent some games that followed, is why even have chests if they're just sitting in the way of where you're going anyway? Chests that you would not even be able to pretend you didn't see. Because at this point, they don't feel like special finds anymore, they feel like a chore that you can go about while moving from one cutscene to the next. This game very clearly cares more about combat than collectibles or exploration, so just relocate any of these chest contents into enemy drop tables. And especially get rid of the fucking maps. I cannot believe this game has the gall to waste your time forcing you to watch Sora do the opening animation to get a map that depicts a straight line. For the record, I'm not trying to suggest that not a single chest in KH1 or the later games is standing right in your path of progression, but at least some of them, many in the case of one, require you to go a little out of your way to get them. Whether that means doing some platforming, puzzle solving, or even clearing enemies out of a precarious area so you're able to open it. There are very few treasure chests that are not in your immediate line of sight and at an identical elevation to Sora when making your way through any given KH2 area. Which is why I think this game would have been better off just not even bothering. And I know that would break the KH2 randomizer, but, you know, as someone who sunk a lot of time into that last year, imagine how much more fun a KH2 rando would be if you actually needed certain abilities to reach certain chests, barring the aforementioned cavern. I had a lot of fun doing randos, but at a point you're just routing out the most optimal path for collecting a bunch of chests at once. And the routing can change on the fly, and that can be interesting, but it's such a shame to think about how much more interesting it could have been. The whole experience is chiefly centered on opening chests, and it's the most boring game in the series to be doing specifically that in. Oh wow, I said I wouldn't do that whole diatribe thing. Anyway, I guess it's the AP boosts on either side of the Emperor or the synth materials behind him in the throne room. They're actually hidden behind the little stairs or the throne itself, and you'd have to purposefully look around in a room that you don't need to do anything else in besides leave it to do the Storm Rider fight. Alright, Beast Castle, a spooky French castle with a bunch of corridors and a dungeon. There is ample opportunity to have some fun secrets, maybe some contraptions that push aside some bookshelves or some trapdoors or... Oh, okay, so we're going to be shoving them up against walls for the rest of the game. Got it. That's neat too. This one in the West Hall could have been the pick. It's once again sorta hidden behind a staircase, but you're gonna see it when opening this one that's sitting a few feet away. Like, what are we doing here? Why are these so close together? I get having a big clump of chests in safe areas like the dungeon or the Crystal Fissure in Radiant Garden, but how could this be the slightest bit fun or rewarding? Jesus, Patty, come on, remember your blood pressure. I guess by default, the Beast Castle pick takes us to the courtyard, which is a room you actually never have to explore on either visit to the world. You have to enter it to trigger the Zaldin fight, but the game doesn't give you control there, it plops you on the bridge through the cutscene. So this whole area is optional content. We'll pick this AP boost all the way out in the corner, because at least it forces Sora to get his steps in for the day. That brings us to Olympus Coliseum, which is packing a lot more rooms and chests this go around. I actually think there's an obvious and pretty good answer here, which is this ledge holding 2 chests in the cavern's entrance. Unless you have some movement abilities, you can't get these guys when entering from the main underworld area. You'll be able to see them though, which should prompt you to go looking for a path to reach them. You need to find another entrance to the entrance by way of exploring the Lost Road area, which is itself one of the least straightforward rooms in the game. This extreme degree of tenacity rewards you with a Dark Shard and an AP boost, so not the most exciting payoff, but again, we're about the journey here. Next is Disney Castle, which is the smallest world in the game, at least by room count, and basically all of its chests are located in the courtyard. They're all just sorta sitting on top of shrubs, which is more than you can say for most of the chests in Beast Castle or Land of Dragons, so that's something. I guess I'll pick the star recipe that's sitting on the castle in the center. Of course, Timeless River is next, and while the world generally exudes charm, it unexudes interesting chests. There is only 7, and none of them are really any more noteworthy than each other. So I guess it's the AP boost at the far end of the waterway. I like having more abilities equipped. That brings us to Port Royal, and I guess the pirates who left these chests laying around never really heard of the whole buried treasure thing. To its credit, the world is better than most of the ones we've talked about so far in this regard. It has a couple of chests hiding behind crates of gunpowder, which isn't nothing. There's a couple like that in the powder store area, but I think the easiest one to miss is in town. This one here that contains another AP boost. Man, we're really cruising now that I've got all my complaining done. Agrabah is another place that's well suited to having tricky treasure spots, especially in the Cave of Wonders. Unfortunately, that place has been streamlined, like the Pringle Man's face or any other logo atrocities committed in the last 10 years or so. Ah, there's that complaining again. Well, the best chest is actually in Agrabah proper this time, and once again, you gotta hit some stuff to uncover it. This is probably as Link adjacent as Sora gets, because you're just gonna thoughtlessly destroy the stall in the bazaar and steal the AP boost hidden underneath. By the way, I don't know if it's a coincidence that the picks for KH2 have been primarily AP boosts, or if there's just that fucking many of them that it's bound to happen. Oh, Hallway Weentown. You know, they say Kingdom Hearts has a large gay fan base, but you could have fooled me with how fucking straight these rooms are. Here's the map of KH2 Halloween Town, and okay, fine, the Curly Hill and the Christmas Tree Plaza represent some of your more curious nights in college. Given this world structure, it doesn't lend itself well to hiding any treasures. Maybe if we ever went through the Easter door, the bunny could have shown us how it's really done. Well, there's an energy shard near the guillotine. I guess that's kind of fun. There's not often a chest where you run the risk of getting decapitated. Like world, like chest, there is literally nothing cool or noteworthy for a Pride Lands treasure chest. I mean, they look pretty different than usual, so there's that. But this is a world where you just run through it and don't miss a single treasure chest, so... Remember the scene where Timon and Pumbaa show Simba how to eat bugs? I always thought the bugs looked good. So here's the chest near these termite mounds with a Serenity Gem. Who up spacing they paranoids? Well, sadly not me. Whoever designed the Space Paranoids video game must have been a huge fan of Kingdom Hearts 2 because its chests are placed very plainly. Wait, that's... whatever. Once more, or withstand combo, there is absolutely nothing of note in this world, so I suppose by default the best chest is the Orichalcum Plus in the Central Computer Mesa. It's one of the last rooms you can access in the world, with the chest containing the rarest synthesis material, so it's at least something. Once again, we arrive in the 100 Acre Wood, which, to its credit, has chests in more than just one room this time. Granted, they're still sorta just laying around. There's one or two in the spooky cave that are a bit out of the way, but not really doing enough to warrant being the pick. I'd rather give the spot to the big chest at Piglet's house, because that has a defense boost in it. Why do these stuffed animals have this? Did they roid up for protection during Jagular season? These are a rare find though, and it's worth popping into the book to grab this, even if you don't plan on playing all the minigames. Assuming we're ignoring Xemnas when figuring out the best chest in the world it ever was, because really, look at the physique, that leaves us with few other options. Like End of the World, the Nobody Stronghold is exceedingly linear, but again, justified given that we're starting at the bottom with the goal of exterminating any resistance on our way to the top of the castle. Unironically, I think it's this one off to the side in the Brink of Despair. Even though you obviously need to pass through this room at least once, it's not hard to miss this one since your attention is drawn to the save point, the big chest, and obviously the gigantic Nobody Castle in front of you. I think the devs knew this was kind of a cheeky one too, since it also contains an Orichalcum Plus. Alright, so we could do days, but I mean, between all the different missions, there's a ton of chests that just show up in place of each other with different rewards. There are definitely a handful that require some movement upgrades to reach, so by and large, it's probably got more interesting chest placement than KH2, but I don't know if combing through all of this is really worth my time or yours. Plus, the idea is to pick the best chest in every KH world, and while we've obviously covered something like Olympus Coliseum or Halloween Town twice already, they actually look different between iterations. At their core, the Days worlds are all just pulled from KH1 or 2 with a few tiny add-ons. Or for some reason an almost entirely new Neverland, but even that is mostly just rocks with craters in it. So, like the evolution of motion or the best rooms video, I'll leave this to an intrepid viewer to cover. And thankfully, thank-fucking-fully, Recoded doesn't have chests, which means we can move on to Birth by Sleep.
Back! You must get me treasure!
So I've made no effort on the channel to obscure the fact that I think the Land of Departure is kind of lame, especially as a starting world in a Kingdom Hearts game. I typically like a bit of mystery, but this place feels rather underexplained. I like the Castle Oblivion twist, but I wouldn't have minded a bit of exposition on what exactly this place is. I think its world design is also frustratingly simple for what could have been a cool environment to explore. So we've unfortunately only got a handful of rooms and like 4 nondescript treasure chests. It's sort of like the opposite of KH2, where this game starts off on a relatively weaker foot, but then we might actually have some stuff to talk about in the Disney worlds. But for Departure Land, I guess we'll pick this lone chest in the summit area containing a Soothing Crystal for Terra and a Fleeting Crystal for Aqua. Ven doesn't get anything because he was banned from this world for being too boring. Alright, Dwarf Woodlands, now we're cooking, because the pick here is obvious, it's this one. Ah fuck, that's a spider. There's a handful of good chests in the vault area in the Queen's Castle, stuff that requires more maneuvering than walking in a straight line, which is always fun. But you know I have to go with the potential sequence-breaking chest in the courtyard. Kingdom Hearts is back in rare form, because this is a chest you're not supposed to get the first time you see it. Keywords here being supposed to, because if you have the right attack command, you can totally just slide over and get this early. The game wants you to come back with the movement skill, but fuck that. Ericus says I'm not a master, conventional wisdom says I'm not supposed to get this chest right now, I'm sick of getting bossed around. And the best part is, it's not just some random meld material, it's a fairly high-tier command in Fission Faraga. So either you get it at the later part of the game as intended, or you're rewarded for thinking creatively early on, even if it's not really what the game expected. I thought it would be really funny to go out of my way to avoid picking a Ven chest for all of Birth by Sleep, but then remembered that he undeniably has the best Castle of Dreams visit as far as world design is concerned. Damn you, fairy godmother. And while we're here, damn you, Jacques, fuck that guy. There's 2 routes I could take here, because one chest is out in the open but requires quite a bit of work to get to, especially on your first visit, and another that's, fittingly, a rat bastard that's really well hidden. I generally just love the wardrobe room and how interactive and layered it is, at least when compared to most other areas in the game. This room has these 2 high-up chests that you can only initially reach by going through the mouse hole and coming out through a hole in the wall near this precarious ruler. A jump away from that is the zero gravity command, and by proxy, falling beneath that lands you next to a chest with a fleeting crystal. On the other tiny mouse hand, there's this chest in the aforementioned mouse hole that is assuredly the last one I find anytime I play Ven's Castle of Dreams. It's tucked away behind this wooden beam. I think I have to slightly give the edge to that one. While I love the platforming involved in getting those wardrobe room chests, you'll have to go that way anyway to collect the dress materials, which is mandatory. You can run past this one a million times without ever noticing unless you're really making yourself go through everything with a fine-tooth comb. Next up, Enchanted Dominion, and we know it won't be from Terra's visit because, come on, there's nothing to it. They could have released Terra's visit as a cereal box demo disc. Unlike the other Princess worlds, I do think Enchanted Dominion has fewer fun chests to speak of, and is a bit more KH2 pilled in that it usually settles for putting a chest up against a wall and calling it a day. Not that the other 2 worlds didn't do that at all, but it's a favorite tactic of ED. which also stands for environmental dysfunction, something that you might say this world suffers from. Like in the best rooms video, I guess I once again give a begrudging tip of the non-existent cap to the hall in Maleficent's castle. I won't pretend I'm truly enjoying the portal stuff, but it's home to a few chests that you actually have to work for. I doubt I picked up on it myself, considering I balk pretty easily when a puzzle of this nature shows up and usually just look up the solution, but some of these portal colors change and take you to different places depending on its hue. This one portal here takes you to a magnet command if you wait for it to turn purple before interacting. A bit underwhelming of a reward given its relatively obscure placement, but the game throws in a sticker for your trouble. And Ven's a little baby, so a sticker makes him happy. Just like how you subscribing would make me happy, not that I would ask you to. We'll just sit here and hopefully you'll get bored and uncomfortable enough to hit the button, and then we can move on. Alright, Radiant Garden, back in a place of culture, finally. Although, to be honest, there's nothing too complex going on here. A lot of BBS Radiant Garden's areas are pretty wide open, which doesn't make for super interesting chest spots. But my mind first jumped to the Fountain Court, which has 2 chests that you can only reach by getting squirted a few times. I know you didn't like hearing that, but I'm just explaining how you get there. Between the 3 characters, there's 5 different rewards, so my definitive pick is Terra's Thunder Surge chest. Because I am nothing without that command. I'd still be getting wombo comboed by the mysterious figure if not for Thunder Surge. When it comes to Disney Town, you know we can pretty much rule out all the exterior ground level stuff, which is all just sitting out in the open. I maintain that the coolest part of this world is its underbelly. It's filled with a bunch of machinery and contraptions, which is cool, but its best quality is its distance from any of the Disney Town minigames. This comes at a cost, however. You wanted to get away from the minigames, and where did that bring you? Back to Pete. The pinball machine. The mouse's paw curls. Mario Sunshine's pachinko machine said, "I'm the most insufferable thing of this archetype," and Birth by Sleep said, "Hold my sea salt ice cream." While it's undeniable that these pinball chests require loads more effort to reach than like 90% of chests in not just the game but the series, is anyone having fun doing this? I mean, it's a neat novelty, but holy shit does that wear off quickly. It's manageable enough to maneuver through, but trying to finagle your way to a specific alcove to get that one last chest, it overstays its welcome. But reaching the exit to the roof is easy enough, and you have to do this to access the true best Disney Town chest, which is across from the Gizmo Galley roof as Ven. You basically have to traverse the whole world to reach it, and it's another one you can get early through some clever use of dash attacks, though the game intends for you to get it with Glide. On top of that, it upgrades Glide into Super Glide, meaning you can be doing the super version of the ability Peter Pan teaches you up to 3 worlds early. And if we can take Peter Pan down a peg, I think this is a win-win-win. Well, at least Olympus Coliseum showing up here again means I can kinda phone it in for a few sentences. The Coliseum in BBS is just a watered-down version of its KH1 appearance, with no Blizzard puzzles or Trinities this time. Not even the awesome new locale of the town near Thebes has anything to offer. This one behind the pillars near the lobby doors is at least kinda hidden. For Terra, this is a mega attack recipe, and that's pretty good, right? I don't actually remember. I don't use what's in the chests, I just open them. Now, Deep Space, this place is doing some shit. I wouldn't say it's my favorite BBS world just because of that, because it's overall just a spaceship, and who cares, but I like the stuff it goes for. There's good chests in the prison block with the platforms that raise and lower, and in the ship hub, which has buttons that can change the gravity. Conceptually, I like all that stuff, and while the prison block ones can be a bit annoying, it's not too bad. But ultimately, I think the best one is in the machinery bay access. It's a bit contingent on who you're playing as and what commands you have, because you can definitely just dash or slide over to this the first time you see it. But ideally, you'd activate the lower gravity machine on the bottom floor and jump up the floating block so you can reach this chest, which is Thundara for Terra, a Xehanort Report for Ven, and fittingly, a Zero Gravira for Aqua. Gotta pick the latter just for the synergy. Thankfully, Neverland actually being Neverland opens it up to having some more interesting treasure chests. As it should, because, like, this is a pirate island, and buried treasure is, like, a big plot point of this world. And there's actually a decent handful of options here. My first thought was the one in Mermaid Lagoon that you have to swim to, if only because it's the only time in the whole game where swimming is used to do anything useful at all. For all 3 characters, this chest nets you a moderately powerful attacking command, so I think the devs knew that this one was decently well hidden. Look, it's not Fort Knox by any means, but KH2 Sora would look in his own shoe for a treasure chest before ever finding this one. Aqua's got some good ones in the Rainbow Falls area too, but I ended up going with another Mermaid Lagoon chest. This one that's on a higher up ledge that you can only reach by going through the cliff path and hopping onto this tree next to a hole in the wall. I'm always a sucker for items you can see in one area but can't reach without going through a different area. Terra gets Geo Impact from this chest, which I've probably used a total of 1 time, but it looks cool as fuck, so that's a nice bonus. Oh right, this playable nothing sandwich. For the record, I think a nothing sandwich sounds even sadder than a nothing burger, so I don't employ the term lightly. For Mysterious Tower, it's this one, under the stairs. It has a Mega Magic recipe, and I can tell by looking at Ven, he really needed this at this point in his life. BBS is unfortunately not ending on a high note, since the Keyblade Graveyard is flatter than... let me spin the simile wheel. I guess we're going with the Keyblade Graveyard is flatter than the line on Charletzia's EKG, which seems cruel, but I didn't pick it, the wheel did. Those all came pre-written. Plus, she's alive or whatever, so relax. Twister Trench is easily the most interesting room out of what little the world has to offer, but the chests are all just lined up against walls, so not too zany there. I guess you could conceivably miss the area to your right when starting the world in the Seat of War, so maybe a chest in there? Ven can find Xehanort Report 12 there, which my friend told me that Xehanort says the F word in that one, so I'm afraid of reading it on account of I don't want my mom to take my PSP away. Don't you worry, my precious little pedants, I didn't forget about the Realm of Darkness, which is, of course, a Final Mix exclusive area for Aqua. This place is so gray and barren, it can actually be tricky to find all the chests because you might just get bored and press on so you can finish the episode. I vastly prefer how this place is depicted in the first 3 quarters of 0.2, and I also much prefer playing through it in that game as well. Your BBS visit mostly amounts to wave after wave of Heartless, which, while new to this game, consists of 3 species you've already fought plenty of in KH1 and 2. But that's beside the point, there's 6 treasure chests you can grab here, and I'd wager that somewhere around 80% of players made their way through the Realm of Darkness, checked their treasure log, and found a gap in the middle of their row of chests. This is because unless you got knocked off of these platforms while playing Dermatologist in the upper zone, you never would have come across this chest. So finding this requires you to either fall down accidentally or take a leap of faith. I don't mind this too much, since Kingdom Hearts isn't really a series that kills you for falling down, so you can safely assume falling here just takes you to a different area. It actually takes you back to the lower zone, to an area you can't reach while initially exploring that room, so it's kinda neat. That's really the only neat thing about this place. No wonder Aqua turned into a depression demon after hanging out here. Although if the alternative is moving on to Dream Drop Distance... Oh god, here it comes.
Our most precious treasures.
In fairness, Dream Drop actually has some solid treasure chests. It's just that, as always, Flow Motion is here to dampen any nuance to platforming and exploration. A chest that would be an A+ in any other game is like a C- here, because you can usually bypass whatever cool thing the level design wants you to do, because barreling into a wall and launching yourself into the air is simply quicker and more efficient. For Traverse Town, I have to give an honorable mention to the one on top of Sid's former shop. I actually can't believe they didn't put a chest here in KH1, so good on Dream Drop for rectifying that 10 years later. But points off for not having Jabib. Literally, why did you remove him? That had to have been extra work. There are a few Traverse Town chests that make use of the world's reality shift, which I think is pretty cool. Most reality shifts are presented as something that's mainly useful for combat, which the Traverse Town one is, but you can also use it to destroy some barriers and reveal treasures. It's reminiscent of using magic to interact with the environment in KH1, so I'm naturally pretty high on that. Both Sora and Riku have opportunities to do this, but Sora has access to the post office, which is obviously the best room in the world, so this vibrant fantasy is my pick for Traverse Town. Alright, for Hunchbackland, we've got a bunch of chests scattered around the boring-ass town area. Wait, which boring-ass town area? Because there's fucking 2 of them. Doesn't matter, because both areas are too samey and repetitive for anything here to jump out in my mind. Maybe these candy goggles at the top of the highest tower in the town, but the answer to treasure hunting here, like always, is flow motion wall jumping all over until you find everything. I also wanted to pick the Dulcet Figment at the top of the bell tower, which would have been really cool if you actually had to twirl on the bars to get there, but, you know, you don't, so... It might be a bit redundant after the Traverse Town pick, but Sora has a few chests in the tunnels hidden behind some breakable walls. One of these chests has a Sleeper command, which I'll never use, but I guess we'll go with that. Words cannot really adequately express how little I want to be looking at the grid right now or ever. Every chest in the grid is hard to find because it's hard to exist in the grid in the first place. I'll tell you what, it's definitely not in the Solar Sailor. I've spent like a year total of my life in that fucking thing. I guess, and I mean capital G guess, the best chest is on the first floor of the rectifier on the suspended cargo crate things. It's sorta out of the way, you gotta platform a little, hooray. Can we leave now? Prankster's Paradise is a frame 1 answer, and it's the chest in the Ferris wheel in the amusement park. As soon as I started writing the Dream Drop section, all I knew going in, without looking back through the worlds myself, is that the Ferris wheel chest would be the pick for Pranksters. It's one of the few chests in the entire game where I don't feel some small twinge of guilt from using flow motion to just bypass anything the world is throwing at me. The alternative is sitting at the bottom of the ride and waiting for the chest to come to you, and I'm sure as hell not going to sit still for more than 5 seconds, are you kidding me? I'd rather go to war. So, full disclosure, I've never 100%ed Dream Drop. I know, can you believe it? Never got everything in the reports, never got the Platinum Trophy. Maybe someday. Maybe someday Kingdom Mix. I say that because this is the first chest in the video that I actually never got prior to making this video. And I never would have guessed it'd be in the Grand Lobby in the Country of the Musketeers. It's not exactly a sprawling location, everything seems pretty out in the open, but I have no memory of ever going into this middle layer of the room for this ice cream cone for Sora or royal cake for Riku. There might literally be footage of me playing this world on stream and doing exactly that, and if there is, I've completely forgotten about it. Because when going through the game for this project, this one sort of blew my mind. I'm sure most people found this no problem, but it was a real blindside for me for whatever reason, so yeah, it's that one. So, my pick for Symphony of Sorcery isn't exactly the most difficult to find, but nobody ever said that these all had to be real brainbusters. I never gave that regular pat speech up top about what makes a treasure chest good. We're still figuring it out together, remember? There is a chest in the Cloud Walk section, only in Sora's version of the world, that you reach by grinding on the rainbows that connect to a high-up cloud. Or, you know, flow motion while jumping against the rock and getting on the cloud that way, but pretend you can't. Well, inside the chest accessed via rainbows is the command Prism Windmill. And, you know, prisms break up light into the colors of the rainbow, so I think that's pretty clever. I like the synergy there. Maybe that happens in other places throughout Dream Drop, but if it did, I never noticed, so points for creativity here. Back in the world it never was, despite generally liking this world, I don't think any of its chests really stick out that much. Again, of course, besides Xemnas's. Whatever he's doing, it's working. It pains me because I wish this area was just slightly better, but I'm going with Riku's Dark Splicer chest in the Delusive Beginning. The first time I talked about this area on the channel, I thought these blocks were entirely flow motion repelling, but no, just the red parts. If flow motion was completely disabled here, this chest would be an A+, but of course you can circumvent the entire platforming puzzle by just doing the thing that you've been doing for the entire game! Still, it requires a bit of effort to reach, and the treasure itself is pretty useful. There weren't really a ton of good options otherwise, so Dream Drop goes out with a bit of a whimper. It's me, Aqua 0.2, saying the word treasure in a cutscene. But before we move on to KH3, you know I've got to stop down in 0.2. Consider this my apology for skipping over days. 0.2 doesn't have worlds per se, but I regard its 4 distinct areas as worlds. The Castle of Dreams inspired Castletown, the Dwarf Woodlands inspired World Within, the Enchanted Dominion inspired Forest of Thorns, and plain, boring Depths of Darkness like in BBS Final Mix. To the hardcore 0.2 heads out there, it probably comes as no surprise that I think at least one of the best chests in the game contains a Zodiac relic, all of which you need to collect to unlock the boss rush. You also need to have beaten the game at least once and then start a new game plus, so a lot of them test your exploration skills and familiarity with the Realm of Darkness. So undeniably, the best chest in Castletown is the Sagittarius relic located at the very top of the area. Not only is it just in a cool place, but you get this spectacular view of the town complete with this sweeping shot because the game knew it cooked with this. I guess I already got that on this file, so here's Teal Game Master getting it instead. I felt fully prepared to name another 3 Zodiac relics as the best chests in the following areas, but upon examination, I didn't really find them to be all that interesting. I actually thought my pick for the World Within was a Zodiac chest, but nope, it turns out you can get it on your first playthrough. It's this Mega Potion on top of the half-broken structure in the middle of the area. I definitely didn't find this on my own because I was conditioned by like the last 2 to 3 Kingdom Hearts games to not have to look that hard for treasures. The Forest of Thorns overall has some pretty solid chests. A lot of them aren't right in your line of sight as you make your way through the mandatory path, which is a massive plus. There is a handful that are blocked by these especially evil thorns. I think this one about partway through the area is the most cleverly placed. I'm used to having fire mapped to triangle. I know that Blizzard isn't the red spell. That leaves the Depths of Darkness, which at least got a literal glow up from Birth by Sleep, but it's still the shortest and most boring area in the game. I think the best chest here is actually one that's super close to your starting position after beating the Demon Tower. At the Earth Core spawn trigger, if you hang a right, there's this tunnel that goes into the ground leading to a wide open cave area housing a Mega Ether. Generally, I think 0.2 does a great job with its treasure chests. I actually found them satisfying to discover. Like, more so than the last 3 games we talked about, which is pretty nuts considering 0.2's length and the fact that it only has 41 chests in the whole game. For context, just Radiant Garden in Cage 2 Final Mix alone has 46. I think 0.2's environments were crafted perfectly. It feels open and expansive enough to let the new engine shine and to provide enough space for battles, but there are also these more claustrophobic and less linear areas that make for great collectible hunting spots. So thumbs up overall for a fragmentary passage.
I've had it with this stupid treasure hunt.
And at last we arrive in KH3, which I think generally follows up on 0.2's level design and chest placement philosophy, naturally since they're cut from the same cloth. Starting with Olympus, there's a few solid contenders here. I'm a big fan of shattering Achilles' heel so the statue smashes into this wall, revealing this magic ring. Donald and Goofy even have some quips about it, which I remember finding so charming my first time through. Party members reacting to what's going on in the environment is one of the most underrated KH3 additions, but that's a whole other video. But I think it's kinda hard to miss that one, so I'm picking the power ring chest right outside Thebes at the base of Mount Olympus, hidden in this foot statue. I guess a common theme here is that the best chests have to do with violently damaged legs. This chest is a good showcase to the player that objects you may not think are interactable or even tangible in prior KH games are fair game here, and it's one I definitely didn't find on my first run through the area. Let it be known though that if there were any chests in the Secret Forge area, I'd pick that for sure because I think that area and how you access it is so cool. Moving on to the visually stunning but practically neutered Twilight Town, we sadly don't have many options. I guess sorta by default it's this fluorite hidden behind some crates and barrels. At least I got to destroy something. If this was KH2, they would have made a whole minigame out of this. For Toy Box, I didn't even look around, did not load up a file because I knew already that I had footage of the Rock'em Sock'em Robots chest, or dinosaurs, whatever. There very well may be something that's superbly hidden or requires a lot of physical maneuvering to reach, but I have been charmed by these violent Dinobots for the last 6 years. Yes, we're coming up on 6 now, holy fuck. It's got a micro game, 2 dinosaurs hitting each other, and it's even got a fitting prize and a strength boost. It's so charming, so perfect. And it's not totally obvious that it's an interactable element, which makes it all the more rewarding. Stuff like this makes me wish that the Games Past 1 didn't keep a journal tally of everything you do, because, I don't know, I feel like it's more fun when you find something that's not just something on a list to check off. Over in
A Fairy Tale Kingdom,
what I know initially is fuck the marsh. I quite like the world in general, but I take no joy in traipsing through the swamp looking for whatever treasure chest or lucky emblem I'm missing. Normally I'd give it chest points for being hard to find, but I don't care here, I find this pretty miserable. Well, first of all, honorable mention to the Camping Out Classic Kingdom game being in the cave. I like that the camping themed minigame is out in the woods, and there's actually a handful of Classic Kingdoms that are placed in a properly themed environment, so that's cool. The Wayward Canary shows up not too far from where you kidnap those blue birds. I won't stop down every time to note these, but I always appreciated it. Another honorable mention to the bronze amulet in the forest, which Sora can reach by doing this little crouch walk. Outside of this world, I can't think of any other place where he does this, so the fact that they added this little animation for this bit with the rabbits is a real extra mile moment. Ultimately, I decided on this chest in the kingdom proper, which is guarded by these children and gossiping housewives. Sora is too polite to just shove them all to the ground, so he distracts them by giving himself splinters on this barrel. Everyone in the immediate vicinity throws money to help Sora cover his medical expenses, falsely assuming him to be American, and in the ensuing chaos he slips by and collects the magic boost. Now, that's what I call Ocean's 13, except it's Ocean's XIII on account of it being Kingdom Hearts. Next is Monstropolis, which, and I know I haven't done KH3 world rankings yet, is a world I always felt a bit underwhelmed by. Coincidentally, its treasure chests are very much on the beaten path and kind of hard to miss. So I knew I wanted at least one KH3 pick to be one of those big, free-fall slam into the giant box treasure chests, so it may as well be Monstropolis. Partly because I also think this is one of the coolest freefall spots of that nature in the game. It's a good thing the game kinda holds your hand and guides you into the right spot, because without assistance, I am 100% hitting one of these beams and subsequently splatting onto the Monstropolisian streets. Oh god, so remember the marsh in
A fairy tale kingdom.
Yeah, so just put that in the freezer for a few hours, stretch it out, and you've got Arendelle, just indistinguishable white mush, which is also what many critics have described regular Pat videos as. I initially thought I'd be going to the Labyrinth for this pick, since it's historically been the most tolerable part of the world for me, but upon inspection, nothing there was really jumping out at me. I think it's probably the Blazara choker in the Valley of Ice. You have to climb up this slope on your right and then air dash or glide or do whatever to get across to reach the chest. Nothing mind-blowing, but asks a bit more of you than most chests in most of the games. Fucking 100 Acre Wood, why'd they even bother? Oh, there's no chests here? Great. Good. Jesus, the Caribbean is massive, and this time they got it right. The pirate world should have treasure chests that are more fun to find than playing 52 card pickup. Well, Luxord's notwithstanding. There are actually so many good options here, and pound for pound, I think the Caribbean has the best chests in the game. I think that's aided by the fact that there is so much of this world that you never need to touch to get through the story visit. And yet, there's still basically an in-universe reason to be visiting all these islands, and it's, well, to find treasure. Sora loves being a pirate, so while doing your post-game treasure collecting rounds can feel like a slog in most worlds, here it feels justified because this is what being a pirate is all about. Well, not historically, but for Sora's sake, this is what being a pirate is all about. So anyway, tons of good choices here, but I find myself drifting back over to Sandbar Isle, which is what I picked for my favorite area in this world in that hyper-specific project from years ago. I am obsessed with this absolute hoard of treasure in the underwater portion of the offshoot island. Again, you never need to go to Sandbar Isle, and especially not this part of the area that isn't even the actual sandbar. Finding this place is like hitting the motherlode, and they don't skimp on the treasures here. It's basically all high-value stuff. So take your pick, it can be any one of the Electrums or Orichalcums you can find down here. Once again, San Francisco is intimidatingly huge, though I never found it quite as fun to explore as the Caribbean. This always just felt like a downsized GTA map, and I can't even hit Hero with my car, so what exactly is the appeal? I think the Caribbean works because you know the game isn't going to put any chests or lucky emblems in the bumblefuck corners of the ocean. They're always going to be near landmarks. But San Francisco is basically all ocean, a metropolitan ocean, but everything blends together really easily. So while the chests are sometimes in fun places, it's a bit too needle in a haystack adjacent for my liking. So my San Francisco pick to counteract that energy is the chest that's in the most obvious but still fun to reach spot. The chest containing Nirvana Plus at the very top of this tall-ass tower in the Central District. It's kind of like the boat in Deep Jungle again. You just look at something and think, well, there better be a treasure there, and thankfully the game knows what it's doing. If you could believe it, the Keyblade Graveyard didn't exactly pull out all the stops this time either. That's sort of what you get when the premise is a barren, flat wasteland, and I don't mean to flat shame it, it just doesn't make for very good content. I guess it's actually this cosmic belt that's right near where you start the world. Unless you're returning to this area and not by save point warping for some reason, there's a good chance you'll just run past this one without noticing it. Well, just like Sora's first dream, there is but one chest in the realm where sleep and death touch, an Orichalcum Plus that's only available after regaining your form and escaping Cloud Purgatory. Side note, there should be a reward for collecting every single Sora Phantom, and it should be the Kingdom Hearts equivalent of a Korok Seed. Maybe that gummy block that Turk produced. So glad that we get to end on a strong one by way of Scala ad Kylum. Of course, assuming you've got Remind installed, which adds the beautiful and surprisingly expansive Breezy Quarter area, which is where our final treasure is. Like with Toy Box, I knew immediately what the pick would be here. It's this chest cosplaying as Rapunzel trapped in this tall tower. I was like genuinely perplexed as to how to reach this one my first time through because the entrance to this enclosed room isn't like right beneath it. You've got to travel through the Scala sewer system, that's what I'm going to call it, and make your way into the tower's basement and then run up the walls to reach this ancient Tart of Fruits Plus. Sora's really embracing his inner Castlevania with this one. I wouldn't eat that if I were you. Well, those were my favorite treasure chests. This sure was the regular Pat video of all time. Okay, happy holidays, bye! But also, hi, happy holidays, because you're a real one if you stuck it out through the jingle, and especially that video. I hope it was okay. I know this seemed like something that only a person truly desperate for an idea would do. I get that, but you know, I've always been very niche and hyper-specific about these games. I genuinely wanted to do this for a good while longer than I wanted to do some of the more conventional stuff that I've already done. But I also can appreciate that it was very stupid, a very dumb video, but I had fun. I apologize that I didn't have anything really at all in November. I had those 2 big ones in October because I kind of knew that November would be a bit busy for me, and then I was like sick for the first half of December. But this ended up being like a Christmas special, I guess, right? If you squint. It doesn't help that I keep picking these things that I think will be, you know, easy peasy, but I end up having to play like most of the games and gathering footage and refreshing my memory on stuff. It sure would be cool if I could come up with a video that would be like a 20 to 30 minute project. Maybe if, you know, let me know if there's something short that you want me to do. I'd love to give that a crack. But as we stand here at the precipice of a new year, I did want to thank all of you for watching and supporting me. It was 4 years ago, if you could believe it, in 2020, when my channel really started to pick up steam around Christmas time. And I still have not taken any of that for granted. I don't toss around the B word a ton, but it's kind of a blessing to me. So just thank you so much. Really excited for the stuff coming up in 2025. Maybe we'll even get some Kingdom Hearts news, who knows? If you want to follow me anywhere, regularpat.com has all my socials. I think I have to add Bluesky though. I'm mostly posting on Bluesky over Twitter now. You should too. Of course, if you really enjoyed, patreon.com/regularpat, a couple bucks a month goes a long way in helping me do this full time. This was a yappy outro. I apologize. Okay, have a happy holiday, and I will see you in the new year. Bye.